It's now time to take a look at news stories making headlines around the globe. We begin in China, where the coronavirus death toll in the Asian country has risen to 908, rising by 97 victims on Sunday, the highest number of casualties in a day. Official figures show that across China, more than 40,000 people have been infected, while more than 187,000 more are being monitored for symptoms. So far, some 3,200 patients have been cured of coronavirus and allowed to return home. There have only been 2 confirmed deaths from the new coronavirus outside mainland China, one in Hong Kong and one in the Philippines. Some health experts fear that deaths and infections from the current epidemic are undercounted in China because testing facilities are under severe strain. I agree with those fears. You hear all kinds of really alarming accounts of how bodies are taken out of homes in the dead of night and just discarded so that we don't actually have a full account. There's this citizen journalist. I know a veteran journalist like you will resent that term, citizen journalist, but he's a layman who has taken it upon himself to, go to morgues and report all the underhand practices that are going on and just the lack of transparency. And now this gentleman, Chen, he's disappeared. People don't know where he is. So people are now thinking that the government is trying to stifle his voice, same way that they did with Dr. Li, that eventually succumbed to the disease. So it's really quite worrying.
Li Wenliang.
Yeah.
Now, but I think that the major concern here is that, one, this virus continues to spike miraculously. On January 28, when the Director General of the World Health Organization visited, that day, we were told that there was a reported case of about 67 cases per day. We thought it was a big issue. Now, about a week later, there was also a recorded highest casualty per day rate. And then now we hear 97, in one day. And in terms of the cases, 908 people have died in mainland China alone. And the reported cases are over 40,171. But the good news is that the infection rate, we're told, has reduced. But the bigger challenge would seem to be what the New York Times has referred to as infodemic, which is the conspiracy theories that have developed around the coronavirus. Yeah. And this infodemic simply is about misinformation. And some of the things that have been said and attempts have been made to debunk some of them include the fact that, one, we're told that this is a biological war, some kind of...
I read that.
Yes, some kind of, biological weapon war coming from the United States. We have been told that, coronavirus, that corona in Italian and Russia means crown, and that there's some American connection with this. Both Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and President Trump have been linked to this in the Russian newspapers. 2, 3, we have been told that pharmaceutical companies, are also behind the coronavirus and that they are doing this so that they can sell their vaccines when the vaccines are eventually provided in the market. The infodemic is also at the level of information. We've also been, or treatment. We've been told that if you take garlic or if you take some, some kind of insecticides or whatever, then you can cure it. And I think that that's where the big challenge lies. And both the Chinese authorities and other stakeholders in the world, particularly the WHO, we need to continually inform people that, look, these conspiracy theories do not necessarily explain either the source, that is the origin, or the treatment of the virus. Because, the way we are in Africa, many of our people can just take this to heart and begin to swallow all kinds of things and assume that that is the cure. But luckily enough, we don't have reported cases yet in terms of, actual illnesses either in Africa or in Asia.
South America.
Yeah, South America, if you like. South America, yes, that's what I have in mind. Now, the other leg of it, of course, is that in terms of the preparedness of the Nigerian authorities, yesterday on This Day Live, we had a gentleman, Dr. Ina Ekomo, who had just returned, from Chicago. And he said when he got to the airport that, yes, there were some checks at the entry point, but I didn't think that either the Nigerian Center for Disease Control or the Federal Ministry of Health or maybe even the Lagos authorities were prepared enough. That, the checking process was chaotic, and the people who were checking from the Federal Ministry of Health, they did not have the Director General of the NCDC, when he appeared on this program, referred to as medical countermeasures. That is, they did not have protective, gears, and that he thought that was scary, and the whole process was very clumsy. So I hope, and I think, that the relevant authorities at the Nigerian Center for Disease Control and the Federal Ministry of Health should take notice of this, special notice of it, and try to up their game. We have not had, as at this moment, any reported case in Nigeria, but in terms of the procedure, in terms of the protocols, we have to adopt best practices, not the kind of chaotic, situation that we have at the Murtala Mohammed Airport in Lagos that has been reported. And I have no doubt, I have no reason to doubt the eyewitness account of Dr. Eno Okumo, who was on this station yesterday.
And when you'd also think that, especially when we just had a scare last week, which is still a possible scare, when the Senate raised an alarm about what's happening in Benue State, where 14 people had died and 108 people had been infected by an unknown virus. And you'd think that, once again, the idea of prevention being better than cure would be on the front burner in this particular situation. So when you hear eyewitness accounts such as they aren't actually dressed properly at the ports or at the immigration standpoints in terms of actually being able to address coronavirus if it was to come in, it gets you a bit worried, because you want to know that your immigration officers are safe, You want to know that the people who are there, the brave men and women that are there, that are doing these checks at our ports and every entry point, are safe. So if they aren't safe, then who is, So these are things that definitely need to be taken into account. But I'd say if I can say good news, and I can't really call it that, but it is better news around the entire coronavirus as well, or new coronavirus, is that children are less likely to get infected, and very few children have been infected, and they are... Well, some doctors have said some children may just be asymptomatic to the virus as a whole. But then again, a newborn baby was also infected, which is why I said I can't really say it's good news. But to know that it's not affecting children as much as it is the rest of the world is a bit of a light in all of this darkness, honestly. It is.
A little glimmer.
A little glimmer,
Yeah.
a slight
We're still
one.
talking about the Nigerian side of it. I mean, I've read an account of Nigerians in Wuhan expressing concern, particularly about how the members of the House of Representatives, treated the matter as if it was a joke.
I was extremely
Yes, they have objected to that because the video, we are told, has gone viral in China, particularly in Wuhan, and the Nigerians, the 60 of them that are there, they are not pleased at all. The Nigerian ambassador to China has donated 1 million naira, we are told, to members of the Nigerian community in Wuhan. Why they appreciate that, they think that it's just mere tokenism, and that they have seen greater concern, greater, attention coming from the Chinese authorities rather than from the Nigerian government. And I think that the Nigerian government should not dismiss the concern that has been expressed by Nigerians who are resident in China. Because if we compare our response in terms of how we feel, for our compatriots who are in that country, to what the Kenyans, for example, have done for their own people, it will look as if Nigeria has not shown enough empathy. And I think that is not good enough, given our status.
It is abysmal. I said it on this show. This is exactly why I was watching them laughing in the House of Reps, and I thought this is why you are insulted daily and called legislators and what have you. Exactly. Nobody respects you. How can you treat such an important issue with such levity? If they had one relative there, they would not take it that way. At least debate the motion. Exactly. And then they started making jokes. Oh, my mic isn't working. Imagine that. And these are human beings we're talking about, Nigerians we're talking about. It started off when the federal government got the figures wrong. Remember, the federal government said, I believe 16, and it turned out to be 60. Even that you don't know. I mean, it's just embarrassing.
It is embarrassing, and it shows the lack of value that we have for ourselves as a people, really and truly, and the lack of value that our leaders also have for us in this society. It's a big shame on their behalf. They should be extremely embarrassed at the way that they've acted towards this situation, and they're the exact reason why the country is the way it is.
Okay, the conclusion, every Nigerian life matters.
Yes.
Whether in China or anywhere else in the world.
Exactly.
But we'll take a short commercial break now. When we return, the Morning Show will continue. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Morning Show here on Arise News. Well, Tunu, we have another story, right?
Yes, we do. In Nigeria, the plan by the coalition of northern groups CNG to establish a local security outfit known as Shege Kafasa as the region's equivalent of Amatekun in the southwest has been rejected by northern governors, according to an investigation by a sister outfit this day. The governors, who also described the name of the outfit as derogatory, indicated their preference for community policing to secure the region. Their rejection came a few days after the Sultan of Sokoto, Alhaji Saad Abubakar, opposed the establishment of the security outfit with a call on northern elders not to allow the youth to take over their responsibilities. This day also learned at the weekend that governors of the North Central states would meet later this month in Minna, the Niger state capital, to discuss the rising wave of insecurity in the geopolitical zone. The meeting will be a follow-up to the one recently held in Lafia, Nasarawa state. Now, on the face of it, the Sultan of Sokoto, who we all know is like the most influential voice in the north, probably, saying that the elders must take charge and not allow the youth, that sounds somewhat strange until you actually look at who he's referring to. This coalition of northern groups, I'm sorry, this wholesale rejection is in order. This is the same group that, what did they say? Igbos should leave the north in 2017. No, in 2017, they said everybody should go back to Biafra if you're Igbo in the north. They gave them a quit notice. And then in 2019, they repeated that. They gave an ultimatum. I mean, this is disgusting behavior. So these are people who should not be allowed to hijack any kind of security process. And the Shege Kafasa, I mean, I don't know what it means. I don't speak Hausa, but I actually hesitate to ask, dare I ask what it means? Because the name of it seems to be really offensive to people who do speak Hausa. They say it's derogatory, it's insulting. So, you know, by its name, you can sort of know where they're heading. If they're using an insulting phrase, then it's not about security. It's probably more about aggression. So this is a really good call on the part of the northern governors. They should now go to the drawing board and address how they're going to bring about this community policing that they want.
You're right.
Well, what we know is that Shege Kafasa in Hausa means I dare you to attack or surrender. In other words, I dare you to confront me, either when I attack you or when you are at my mercy. So I don't know, but that's what it means.
So it's more threatening.
And it's clearly a response, you know, to the attempt in the southwestern part of Nigeria to set up Operation Amotekun, or what is known as the Western Nigeria Security Network. The Western Nigerians already, over the weekend, had decided on a bill that will be presented in the various states on Wednesday at the state executive councils in the states in the southwestern part of Nigeria. Over the weekend also, the leaders of the Ohanaeze Ndigbo and governors of the southeastern part of Nigeria decided that they too will set up a similar security outfit. So whereas there is a consensus among the political leadership in the east and the southwest, we don't seem to have that in the northern part of the country. That's the critical difference. And this coalition of northern groups, made up mainly of northern youths, said that they had decided to go ahead on their own because they figured out that the northern elite is a disconnected elite, it's an alienated elite, it's an elite that doesn't have the interest of the younger people of the north in mind, you know. And for that reason, they had decided to launch the Operation Shege Kafasa and then deal with the consequences. But yes, the Sultan of Sokoto is against it because he says, you know, who are these youths? I mean, who gave them the approval? The next person to speak was the governor of Kano State, Governor Ganduje. And after Governor Ganduje, the chairman of the Northern Governors Forum, I think it's Simon Lalong, of Plateau State, he also spoke and rejected the idea. But the youths are saying that they are not surprised because northern leaders have never had the interest of their people in mind. And they use the opportunity also to spell out their interest, that Operation Shege Kafasa is supposed to address banditry and kidnapping, and that if the state governors reject them and the traditional elite reject them, then they will take their case to the federal government to see how Operation Shege Kafasa can be properly recognized. However, one point that commentators have drawn attention to is the fact that when Operation Amotekun was announced in the Southwest, the Attorney General of the Federation was quick to say that it was illegal. So many are surprised that in this case of the Operation Shege Kafasa, the Attorney General of the Federation has been very conveniently silent. And the question to be posed to him is that, is Operation Shege Kafasa, is it illegal? What is the position of the federal government? However, these northern youths, they are going to take their case to the federal government. And Nigerians would like to know what the position of the federal government will see. But clearly you can see that all the regions, the groups, are resorting to self-help, which in itself is a comment on the state of insecurity in the country.
Absolutely. I couldn't have said it better myself. And Arise News business analyst Rosu Sudiri joins us now to give us the latest. Good morning. How are you?
Good morning. I'm fine, thank you. It's very hard to... I'm here to talk about natural gas prices actually dropping. Yes. But really quickly, on the Amotekun and all these things going on, this is an economic problem. It's a problem as an offshoot of unemployment. The Bureau of Statistics has not given us unemployment figures since Q3 2018, as at that time unemployment was about 20%. It's probably grown since then. So it would be good for the Southwest region, Northern region to focus on job creation initiatives that can get idle youth off the streets, which will not now spill over into a security issue. But anyway, natural gas. Natural gas. I saw when you talk about your headlines, you're going to be looking at a story in This Day talking about NNPC's 16% increase in gas supply that's supposed to go towards power generation. Looking at the macro picture, gas prices, natural gas prices have dropped about 60% since November of 2018. They've dropped about 30% since February of 2019, dropped about 15% since January of this year. Actually looking at that chart right now with an arrow I drew showing the fall in prices. Now, a lot of people want to attribute this to the coronavirus issues. Very recently, the China's national offshore oil company called a force majeure, which is a clause that allows you not to fulfill a contract because they were not able to receive shipments from oil companies like Total and Shell and so on because they didn't have enough people on hand to be able to handle those shipments because of the virus. But the fall in natural gas prices that we're seeing goes beyond what's going on with the coronavirus. Also, it has to do with the fact that there's been a warmer than expected winter in the Northern Hemisphere. So we just had a chart right now showing the U.S. drawdown figures on gas. They draw down when people need more heat to warm up their homes. But we're seeing that this is actually 47% below the 5-year average for a number of figures. So is it climate change or what could it be? You're having a warmer than natural winter.
Climate change.
Probably.
Sure.
With the warmer...
Yeah, but the fact also
with the warmer
the fact also is that as a result of the coronavirus, there's been a drop of about 1 million barrels per day from China.
We're seeing oil
and
prices
that has
reflect that, yes.
serious implications.
Right.
And, with the spot price of crude oil, what I saw in the papers is that, look, the spot price has even dropped below the benchmark for the 2020 budget. So what are the implications, for the budget performance, projected budget performance for 2020? The fact of the matter is that, of course, in the oil and gas market, prices are volatile.
Yes. Now,
the question is Nigeria prepared for that? And that's why, at all times, the argument about the diversification of the economy, is not an argument that anybody can dismiss or discount. Even Saudi Arabia, as you have said, has been talking about diversification. Despite the strength of Saudi Arabia, they are going into tourism, they are opening up. Now, is Nigeria going at the required pace?
Right.
Are we taking the right steps to be sure that we can, prevent protect the Nigerian economy against these global external shocks? That's the question I pose to you.
Well, the thing is, we're not moving fast enough. Just to point out, Nigeria's economy is actually diversified. What's not diversified is Nigeria's revenue. So most of our revenue still comes from oil. And if you look at what's been happening with regards to tax revenue coming in, non-oil sector, GDP, still not there.
As we can be.
From a revenue standpoint, yes, that's where it is. That's where it is.
Relative to GDP.
Correct.
You know,
That's the issue.
I mean, I think we'd have far way more people in employment if we were as diversified as we should be. We haven't maximized that potential. But even companies like Saudi Aramco are looking at how they can diversify as well, going into solar energy, etc. We spoke about this with the downstream MD of the NNPC that came on the show, I think, last week, about ways in which the NNPC can also diversify.
Yes. That's his name.
Yes.
CEO downstream operations.
Exactly.
Right, and also, speaking of the NNPC, so if you think about Nigeria's Liquefied Natural Gas Limited Company, majority owned by NNPC, which represents the federal government, also partially owned by Total, Shell, and Eni International. They just signed a deal back in December for a Train 7, which is another distribution point to be able to give out export natural gas. With the way prices have been going now, that's possibly under threat if prices continue to go down, because we want to be able to export natural gas in addition to oil to bring in revenue. But still, we're still in the oil and gas phase, right? Yeah. So we still have to think about ways that we can get out of that. Nigeria has to look at privatization.
It's not going to come on stream immediately.
Right, no, not immediately, yes, exactly, not immediately. But if you look at the trend of natural gas prices and how they've been trending downwards, it is something that you have to keep an eye on with regards to where the country is going. So, I mean, you know, it affects us directly, and you can now see the offshoots when you now want to talk about other issues that the economy is facing and the country is facing. It's something that we have to keep an eye on.
The writing has been on the wall. Renewable energy is something we really need to focus on at this point.
But if all of this is so obvious, because we're not really saying anything new. No. We have had many guests on this program. Yeah. These things are predictable, foreseeable.
Right.
So why is government never, ever prepared or thinking ahead?
Well, I mean, the renewable energy is not cheap, right? So if you think about solar panels, wind, and other items, they're probably going to need some help from foreign investments. They're going to assist them in able to get that out there.
It's also about the models you use, like the Gates Foundation, for example, and how they went to universities to find models.
Well, Rotus, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We'll see you again tomorrow morning. Thank you very much.